The spring wind cut across Griffin Military Academy like a blade, sharp, restless, alive with purpose. Cadets in pressed uniforms jogged between buildings, boots striking the concrete in practice rhythm. Orders echoed across the quad, a chorus of discipline wrapped in youthful ambition. Through the main gate walked a woman who didn't seem to belong. She wore a black windbreaker faded from years of use, tactical boots with their soles replaced more than once, and a baseball cap pulled low enough to shadow her eyes. A worn duffel rested on her shoulder, swinging lightly, as if weight meant nothing to her. No rank. No insignia. No name tag. Just quiet confidence wrapped in anonymity. A few cadets near the benches stopped to stare. "Civilian contractor?" one whispered. "Maybe logistics," another guessed. A third smirked. "More like someone's mom got lost." But the woman didn't notice or didn't care. Her stride was steady, each step deliberate, like someone who already knew every turn of the base by heart. She moved through the academy's central walkway and toward the east wing, where tinted glass and biometric scanners guarded the restricted section reserved for senior staff and command faculty. Inside, Conference Room 4C was being prepared for the morning's mentorship rotation, an annual event pairing cadets with combat veterans who'd lived through what textbooks could only describe. She was one of those veterans. Major Ridley's invitation had been brief. "Come if you can. We need someone real. Someone who's bled and kept quiet about it. These kids need to see what earned stillness looks like." So she'd come. At the security checkpoint, Cadet Mendez straightened as she approached. His khaki uniform looked freshly pressed, his beret perfectly aligned. His face carried the polite confidence of someone who'd never once questioned the limits of his authority. "Ma'am, this wing's restricted," he said. "Visitor parking's back at the west gate." The woman met his gaze evenly. "I'm expected. Mentorship session, Dana R. Carver." Mendez gave a rehearsed smile. "Even so, we need credentials for this wing, especially during candidate week." Another cadet nearby chuckled. "Maybe she's kitchen staff." Dana reached into her jacket and produced a folded document, Major Ridley's written authorization. The paper was creased and stamped, a signature visible at the bottom. Mendez accepted it with exaggerated courtesy. "Paper doesn't override digital clearance, ma'am." She said nothing. She didn't argue, didn't explain, just stood there with that quiet patience that makes other people uncomfortable. He opened the letter, reading aloud. "It says you were invited to speak. No base clearance code. No visible ID." He returned it with a shrug. "You'll need to wait while I verify." Behind the desk, the admin technician, Sergeant Ortiz, glanced over. "Mendez, she's on the access sheet. Instructor level clearance. Escort optional." Mendez frowned. "She doesn't even have her badge displayed." "She's prior service," Ortiz replied. "Let her through." But Dana didn't move. Mendez exhaled, frustrated. "Look, even if you're cleared on paper, walking around in civvies sends the wrong message. You're retired admin, right?" Another cadet snickered. "Looks like someone's ant wandered in." Dana turned slightly, her gaze drifting to the training field outside. Rows of recruits ran drills under a pale blue sky. She took a slow breath, set her duffel down, and sat on a nearby bench. The motion was calm, controlled, yet somehow it quieted the air around her. As she adjusted the strap, something slipped from the bag's side pocket. A laminated card, corners frayed and edges taped together. One word still legible in thick black ink. Valkyrie. Mendez was the first to notice. He picked it up with a smirk. "Call sign? Really? You can't just give yourself one of these and expect people to salute." The others laughed. Dana merely took the card back, slid it into her duffel, and said nothing. Across the corridor, A cadet named Jacob Landry looked up from his tablet. He wasn't part of the security team, just another third-year officer candidate waiting for his militia group to start. He was quieter than most, sharper than he looked, the kind who noticed details others missed. And when he saw the call sign, his breath caught. Valkyrie. His stylus froze above the screen. For a moment, he thought he'd misread it. But no, those letters were unmistakable. That name hadn't been spoken aloud in years. It existed only in heavily redacted after-action reports and whispered speculation. Landry remembered seeing it once, buried in a declassified document about Operation Firehook, a failed extraction in Somalia where 3 units had gone dark. The file was mostly black lines and missing pages, but one radio transmission had survived the censors. "This is Valkyrie. Package secure. Commence blackout." His pulse quickened. He stood, leaving his tablet behind, and crossed the hallway. "Ma'am," he said softly. Dana looked up. Her eyes were steady, unreadable, but not unkind. There was a weight in them that made him feel like she already knew what he was about to ask. "I saw your ID," he said, voice barely a whisper. "That call sign, were you Valkyrie?" For a long moment she didn't answer. Then something flickered behind her eyes. Not surprise, recognition. Landry swallowed hard. "I read about what happened in Bull Province. The insertions without air cover, holding the corridor while evac birds pulled wounded under fire. I thought it was a myth." Dana studied him. Then, so quietly he almost missed it, she asked, "What stories?" "The ones that said you flew 27 extractions without losing a single team. That you refused the Medal of Honor because someone else needed it more." Her jaw tightened. A flash of pain crossed her face, there and gone. She nodded once, barely perceptible. It was enough. Landry stepped back as if from something sacred, then turned and hurried toward the comms office, his mind racing with questions he wasn't cleared to ask. At the desk, Mendez rolled his eyes. "Look at Thompson getting all worked up. You'd think the president walked in." Another cadet snorted. "Probably Air Force. You know how they love their fancy call signs." Dana reached into her jacket for her keys. The sleeve lifted just enough to reveal a thin silver scar tracing her forearm, and beside it, a small tattoo, 2 crossed daggers beneath a raven in flight. The laughter died instantly. A corporal near the entrance froze mid-motion, eyes narrowing as recognition hit. The symbol wasn't decorative. It was a mark few people outside special operations had ever seen. Silence spread like a shockwave. Even Mendez stopped mid-sentence, his confidence faltering. That insignia, the raven and blades, belonged to a unit that officially didn't exist. A task group that operated without call signs, without flight records, without acknowledgement. Ghosts who brought soldiers home from places no one admitted being. "Where'd you get that ink?" a cadet asked quietly. Dana said nothing. She pulled the sleeve down again, folded her hands, and waited. The silence spoke for her. Somewhere down the hall, a door opened, the soft click of polished boots on tile. The air itself seemed to shift. Every cadet straightened before they even knew why. General Marcus Harland entered the corridor. The air inside Griffin Academy's east wing had gone still, like the building itself was holding its breath. No one moved. No one spoke. General Marcus Harland stood in the center of the corridor, his gaze locked on Dana Carver. Time stretched thin between them, silent recognition passing like a classified transmission. "Valkyrie," he'd said, and in that single word, every conversation, every assumption, every careless laugh from minutes ago turned to ash. Dana rose slowly. Not in deference, not in pride, but with the quiet precision of someone who had spent a lifetime learning how to move under pressure. She met Harlan's eyes, calm and unflinching. Harlan drew in a long breath. You flew the Zulu corridor, didn't you? Her answer was simple. 6 insertions. No air cover. Bad comms. The general's jaw tightened. I thought you were Kia. The report said, successful extraction by unknown asset. It wasn't my job to fill in the blanks, she replied. A murmur rippled down the hall, cadets exchanging uncertain glances. Mendez looked pale. He wanted to vanish into the floor. Harlan stepped closer. Jesus Christ, he muttered, half to himself. All these years. Then his voice hardened, filling the space with command presence. You all questioned her credentials, didn't you? Every head turned toward Mendez. The cadet's mouth opened, but the words tangled before they could form. Sir, she didn't have her identification displayed. I thought. You assumed. Harlan cut in, his tone surgical, each word deliberate. You assumed that a quiet woman in worn boots and no name tape didn't belong here. You assumed paperwork mattered more than presence. Silence fell heavy. The general's eyes swept the room. This woman flew missions that aren't written down. Her call sign is carved into the memorial wall at Firebase Osprey. There's a ready room at Bram Air Station that still keeps her photo above the mission clock. Because when Valkyrie was overhead, he paused, his voice lowering to something almost reverent. You came home. Even the admin tech Ortiz swallowed hard, eyes wide. Harlan turned back to Dana. Would you still consider leading the mentorship session? I would, she said quietly. He nodded once. Then do it. These cadets need to learn what respect actually means. He turned toward Mendez. Cadet, you'll attend front row. Eyes open. Ears sharper. Mendez snapped to attention. Yes, sir. The briefing room. Conference room 4C wasn't grand. Just a semicircle of tables under humming fluorescent lights. The kind of room where routine briefings turned into lessons people never forgot. Dana entered first, her boots quiet on the scuffed linoleum. She carried her duffel and a thin manila folder. No slides, no prepared notes, no ceremony. She didn't stand behind the podium. She chose a seat in the middle row, set her folder down, and waited. One by one, cadets filtered in, some stiff with discomfort, others whispering in awe. Even those who hadn't known her name felt the gravity of what had happened in that hallway. When everyone had settled, Dana stood. I was told this session was about leadership under fire, she began, voice steady and clear. But fire doesn't always come from bullets. The room was silent. Sometimes it's doubt. Sometimes it's silence. Sometimes it's a room full of people who've already decided you don't belong. She let her gaze sweep the room, not accusing, not defensive, just grounded. I'm not here to tell war stories. I'm here to talk about what comes after them. Reaching into her duffel, she pulled out a folded strip of faded fabric. A shoulder patch, black cloth, sun-bleached, edges frayed. A raven over 2 crossed blades. The same emblem tattooed on her wrist. Most of what I did, she said softly, can't be taught in classrooms. And most of the people, I did it with art around to explain it. Her eyes met Mendez's for a heartbeat before shifting to the rest of the room. You don't earn your place by speaking the loudest, she continued. You earn it by showing up when things fall apart and staying when everyone else leaves. You earn it by listening harder than you talk. A cadet in the front row raised his hand. Landry, the same one who'd recognized her call sign. His notebook was open, but his pen hadn't moved. Ma'am, he said, cautious. When you flew the Zulu corridor missions. Dana lifted a hand, stopping him gently. I'm not here to talk about that mission, she said. I'm here for this one. The message landed. She looked around, her voice soft but carrying weight. You want to lead? Learn to carry weight without needing someone to see you do it. Learn to stay calm when the world goes sideways. That's what leadership looks like when it's real. A pause. Then she continued, You'll lose people. Sometimes the ones who trusted you most. You'll wake up shaking and pour your coffee with the same hands that pulled bodies out of wreckage the night before. No one prepares you for that. You just learn to stand again. No one moved. No one dared. Finally, a hand went up in the back. Cadet Reyes. Ma'am, he said, his voice wavering. What kind of leader did you trust most when everything went wrong? Dana didn't hesitate. The one who kept his voice calm when everyone else started yelling. The one who made decisions without needing to explain them twice. Another cadet, Brookstone, leaned forward. How do you rebuild trust after failure? Start with silence, Dana said. Let people watch your next move instead of listening to your excuses. Then make that move count. Mendez raised his hand last. His throat looked tight. What do you do when people assume you don't belong? Dana looked at him, steady, measured, unblinking. They're not the ones who decide if you belong, she said. And neither are you. Her tone wasn't harsh. It was truth, delivered like gravity, inevitable, unarguable. The words hung there, heavy and electric. Mendez swallowed, nodding once. Dana's gaze moved across the rows of faces, young, uncertain, newly humbled. You think rank earns respect, she said. It doesn't. Character does. Earn that, and you'll never need to raise your voice to be heard. When the session ended, no one rushed to leave. The usual chatter after briefings was gone. Cadets filed out quietly, their expressions thoughtful, subdued. Dana gathered her folder and the old patch, tucking both into her duffel. Harland appeared in the doorway, a folded slip of paper in hand. Permanent base clearance, he said. No more questions at the gate. Dana took it, folded it once, and pocketed it without looking. Mendez stood nearby, awkward, unsure if he should salute or apologize. His eyes carried the look of someone who'd seen his worldview collapse and wasn't sure what to build in its place. You weren't wrong to ask for ID, Dana told him, her tone even. You were wrong to think you already knew the answer. He nodded, the lesson landing deeper than any reprimand ever could. She picked up her duffel, gave Harland a nod, and walked out. No salute, no fanfare, just quiet purpose. Outside, the afternoon sun had shifted. Shadows stretched across the courtyard, long and weighty. Cadets gathered in small clusters, their usual easy chatter replaced by thoughtful silence. The wind stirred the academy flag, snapping sharply in the warm air. Mendez sat alone beneath the pole, cap in his hands. For the first time, he wasn't thinking about orders or protocol, only what kind of man he wanted to become. Landry stood by the walkway, still clutching his notebook. Through the glass, he saw Dana emerge, her stride steady, her windbreaker unzipped. She moved like someone carrying the weight of history lightly, as if she'd made peace with it long ago. He jogged to catch up. Ma'am, he said softly. She turned, eyes calm, patient. Why'd you come back? He asked. After everything you've done, they didn't even recognize you. Dana looked past him toward the flag snapping in the wind. I didn't come for my name, she said. I came for theirs. She reached into her jacket, pulling out a small cloth patch, frayed, edges worn thin. She handed it to him. My old unit insignia, she said. We didn't wear it on our sleeves. We kept it in our bags, in case someone needed to know who brought them home. Landry held it carefully, as though it might disintegrate. Keep it, she said, for when they doubt you too. He opened his mouth to speak, but she was already walking away, sunlight glinting off the faint scar on her wrist. She didn't look back. She didn't need to. The breeze followed her out the gate, carrying the sound of rustling leaves and the faint creak of the academy's flagpole, like the world itself saluting something it finally remembered.